Thank you for making it to another episode of The Money Exchange. If you're listening, and It's My Money with Patrina Dixon, if you're watching us, I am so excited to have this young lady on with me today. Before I introduce her, let me remind you, my name is Patrina Dixon. I am the It's My Money lady across all platforms. My goal is to make sure that you have the financial fundamentals so that when you begin to build, invest, and travel and do whatever you do to get extra money, that you have that foundation in place. So if you're looking for somebody to conduct workshops or do a speaking engagement relative to personal finances, I am your girl. I also have a bunch of other things that you can drop down in the show notes and get information on. But I don't want to spend any more time talking about me. If you're rocking here with me, you know who I am. I want to introduce Jen. Jen, how are you, Jen?
I'm doing very well, Patrina. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So Jen, I follow you on Twitter and I'm always amazed by the wonderful pictures you have. And before we get into what you do and what we're going to talk about today, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Jen Ruiz. I am a solo female travel blogger behind Jen on a Jet Plane. I have been doing this now full time for 5 years. This all started when I set out to take a 12 trips in 12 months challenge while employed full time as an attorney the year before my 30th birthday. I ended up going nuts, taking 20 trips in 12 months, writing my first book at the end of that year, and then quitting my job just a few months later. So I've been doing this now for a while. I guess you could call me a full-time travel content creator and travel writer. So I monetize my expertise in the travel space by promoting brands, destinations, and just different travel tips generally.
So Jen, I love how you so eloquently put that. Like you full-time work traveling and writing and talking about it. Like, okay, talk about a girl's dream like that. I want to be able to travel, enjoy wonderful destinations on somebody else's dime. So how did you leap from the attorney that you dropped in that you were? So when I read her bio too, I'm like, what? I didn't know you were an attorney. So she went from an attorney full-time traveling on a challenge, and now that's how she earns her money full-time. Why was it traveling? So you had the challenge. Did you challenge yourself to do this, or was it a challenge somebody else challenged you with and you thoroughly enjoyed it and that's how you leaped into it?
Yeah, so I think when we all approach 30, it's the first big milestone birthday that we have where we really start to reckon with, are we where we want to be in our lives? Have we accomplished as much as we want to, right? At 20, you're still worried about reaching the legal drinking age and you're not really thinking about anything like that. But at 30, it starts to hit you, right? And so for me, when I approached that last year of my 20s, I thought to myself, I've worked really hard, nonstop. I went straight into law school. I was already a bar attorney by the time I was 24. By the time I was 29, I'd practiced for 5 years. I'd work at with a judge doing felony cases. Like I'd done a lot of really heavy work. And so what I hadn't done was have fun in my 20s. Like what I hadn't done was actually just live and be young. I think as a child of a very go-getter, educator, Hispanic mother, to her, the concern was, let's get you to do all the work that you can early on so that later you can reap the benefits. And I still struggled with that internal battle of, I don't want to wait till later to start enjoying my life. Like I really love to enjoy my life now because I don't know if I'd even get a later, And so I had this internal pull, and I had gone abroad during law school as part of a law program, which actually, funnily enough, I'm in the middle of doing a campaign about taking a gap year, and they just got back to me with feedback like, the photos that you use from working abroad look really drab. Like, can you use something else? And I was like, that was law, right?
Your photos are always amazing to me. I'm like, oh my God, she's living her best life.
Because I was sharing photos from back when I did the study abroad in law school. So pre-influencer. Because I was trying to share with them, kind of the campaign is showing how traveling abroad changed me. And so all I could find were these pictures from Australia back in like 2012. So 10 years ago, before iPhones and everything. And it really captures the environment of just like being in a suit, being in an office. And it's so wonderful and definitely unforeseen. And nothing I could have expected to be at the point now where I do wear dresses as my work attire, like really pretty floral, feminine dresses, right? That I can choose to wear that, and I can choose to wear hiking attire, like all of these things are a whole different life that I've designed for myself that isn't what was envisioned for me as I was going through, 7 years of advanced education and taking on student loan debt and really, working 3 jobs during law school to try to get as much experience as possible. So I did everything right. And I realized that when I got to where I was supposed to be, like the destination, I didn't feel satisfied with that. And this all culminated with that milestone birthday. And that's what prompted this big life shift.
I love it. I love it. So Jen, as I listen to you talk about it, one, I just love how your face just lights up when you start to talk about the life that you now have created for yourself, because that's a powerful statement in itself, right? Some people have to do what they have to do, but when you can create the life that you want to live for yourself, that's a powerful thing. So you defined that it was traveling. You talked about the challenge. It kind of synced up with this milestone birthday. So it sounds very easy. Like, oh, I want to travel and I want somebody to pay for it. I'm going to write about it. How did that translate into, I'm going to leave what, some would define as a really, that can be lucrative profession that you had invested time and money into, to now do this, that you're now considered living your best life? Like how talk a little bit about the fact that it is a job, and although it sounds like very fulfilling for you, that there's decisions that you needed to make before you actually made that leap. Can you just connect that dot for us there?
Absolutely. So I think a good kind of imagery of that is seeing just the tip of the glacier, but not seeing the full glacier underneath the water, right? Of everything that went into making this career what it is now, which is what everybody sees. But really, this all started for me back in 2014, back when I started, practicing law or being a law clerk waiting bar clearance. I was a bar attorney in Maryland, but I had moved to Florida. So I was doing like $15 an hour law clerk work as a bar attorney. And for somebody who's very creative and my mind is going all the time and I'm always on a project, that was like mind numbing work. And so I actually found a lot of reinvigoration and joy and giving activity to my mind in starting off as a freelance writer, well, not even freelance because that implies you're getting paid, but as a contributing writer to Elite Daily, which at the time was, a big outlet. Now it's much bigger. It's been acquired several times, but at the time they had contributing writers. And so I would really get a kick out of going into work and then getting all the work stuff done, because it was honestly kind of rudimentary for me at this point. I'm beyond law clerk work. I'm doing full-on attorney work. I'm just waiting clearance and actually fitting in and sneaking in like an article every single day for Elite Daily that I would submit to them. And so I became one of their top contributors. I had like more than 50 articles that were published with them. And I had one week where I was like 3 of their top 10 articles from all contributors. And they sent me like a bag of swag. And I was like, this is cool, because it made me more animated about my workday if I didn't have to sit there doing like really mundane things. But if I could now I'm like actively engaged. I'm trying to sneak in everything. I'm trying to do everything at once. And so it made that really kind of dull part of being a young associate of waiting for bar clearance, all of that pass by a lot faster. And when I started, I wasn't traveling. I didn't have days off. I barely had lunch off, right? So, I was not writing about travel. I was writing about lifestyle things. I was writing about women that I found inspiring. I was writing about, just different tips to be young and in your 20s and a young professional and things like that. Pop culture articles I was covering. So that's how I got started. And it was just by needing a creative challenge for my brain in a profession that is so routine and so, formulaic. And so once I started really doing amazing with these posts getting seen that I wasn't getting paid for, but they were getting seen, millions and millions of views. And so I had an editor reach out to me personally from Paste Magazine, and he asked me to write for their travel vertical. And Paste is a solely digital publication And so they reached out to me, having seen one of my articles and seen how well it performed for Elite Daily, and asked me to write for them. So I, again, at this point wasn't traveling. So my very first article for them was about how to have a staycation in your own city. Because I didn't have anything to write about, but I started to travel, or started to, find reasons to travel, in part motivated because of this. And that also led me to rebrand my website. It became, it started as 20 Chic, that kind of advice for 20s that were just starting out. Obviously, we're not in our 20s anymore. Then it became What's Jen Up To, more experiential, wanting to share activities. And then finally, Jen on a Jet Plane was born in summer of 2016. And then 2017, I took the challenge. So that was about 2.5. So that was about 2.5 years of work before I even got to be Jen on a Jet Plane in her earliest stages. 2.5 years of work, which most people would quit at that point, because most bloggers quit with under 2 years, because they want to see something immediately at that point in time. And it was a lot of time, honestly, with me not really knowing what I was doing. If I were to start a blog now, it would probably be much, because I understand how blogging works now. It's taken me a long time. It's taken me years of investing. One of my trips in 2017 was to a travel conference. So I started to learn. I started to see what is possible. How are people monetizing? What should I be doing better? In 2018, I invested in a full day SEO workshop to learn how my blog could do better. And then by 2019, I had monetized my blog. And then already within a year of having quit my job, I was able to replace my income with other income streams. I also want to note that while I was taking my challenge, in order to pay for all those trips, I was teaching English online every morning before work. So it was a really exhausting year.
But it paid off, right? I mean, you said a lot. Like I've been taking notes as we were going along. So first I wanted, because you dropped it a couple of times, your tagline is Jen on a Jet Plane. Like that's who you are, who you're known for today. So she is Jen on a jet plane, and I am connected to her, and she literally lives up to that brand. So I love that. So, and then you mentioned being a contributing writer, and then the eyes on that work led to what you're doing today. So I want to stop there for a moment and I guess go back to that, because I think nowadays people are like, well, I'm not going to do anything for free. I'm not going to do anything for free. Now, would you encourage somebody to do that even today, or do you feel you had to do that then, based on what you were doing and what you wanted to get into? Or would you still today encourage somebody, yes, go ahead and write that article or write those articles for free if that's an area you want to get into that may be a rebranding situation, so that you could eventually have what you want to have? Or do you think so would you give that advice today, is the question?
I do fully think that writers should be paid, and be paid their worth, but you have to ask yourself, what is your worth when you're completely new to the space, when you have no bylines whatsoever, when you're just starting out, when you're just kind of throwing something out there and seeing if it sticks. And that was me when I was starting, right? Like, who am I to opine about Taylor Swift's latest album? I have no background in music. I'm just like going off of what I read on Twitter. And so at that point, I felt okay with it, because I felt like what I was getting in return, which was that street cred, where a lot of people now started to look at me like, oh, Jen's actually being published in a really well-known publication. B, those bylines, because they were publishing almost everything I was sending them. So I was getting a huge portfolio online of articles that I had written. And then also because I was bored, like I was really bored at work, and I liked this, like this was enjoyable. And I think it's so easy to get into these jobs that just suck out your soul. And so I think for me, this was some activity to put the soul back in my body, and so I found that very valuable, and I really enjoyed it. I liked that they sent me free gifts. When I did well for them, I liked that I had a personal connection with an editor. I think I asked her to write me a letter of recommendation for something afterwards, and she gladly did. So there were a lot of things that I got out of it. And I think it's up to you. But I think once you do get your feet wet, and once you do have, a handful of bylines, you should absolutely, at the very minimum, be charging then. And you should even be charging, I would say anything less than $100 for an assignment is like a beginner rate. So if you're getting paid $50 to contribute an article, and travel websites, like my friend Max runs a site called Go Nomad, and he allows people to contribute articles for $25. It's a great deal on his end, because he gets content for $25. And it's a great deal on their end because they get, backlinks, they get to build a portfolio, things like that. So when you're just starting out, you decide what you take. If you can get paid, great. And I do think there are these places that pay these nominal fees. When I was starting with Matador Network, they were paying me $60 per article. So I think anything under 100 is like when you're getting started. I think after that, once you've been writing for a while and you have some, because I would say on an average of 1,000 words, that comes out to 10 cents or less a word.
Okay.
So that's kind of beginner rates. I'd say after that, we're going to look at about 20 cents to 50 cents a word for intermediate. So we're looking at $200 to $500 per 1,000 word article. And then for experts, when you're really known, you have bylines, you've been doing this for a while, editors are coming to you with assignments, not the other way around. You should be asking for 50 cents, $1 a word or more.
All right. I love that you're giving that information. I'm making the notes of that as well. Now, I know you said a few times, you mentioned the word byline. Can you give the listeners, what does byline mean? So you and I know that. Tell them what that means.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I get surprisingly asked that by people a lot. And I think I use it just, like regular language. It just is an article that you've written for a publication. So when you say I have a byline, essentially you can swap it out and just say I have an article in this publication. So I have a byline in, recently Time Magazine's World's Greatest Places for 2023. I now can say that I've written for Time Magazine. So that's one of the outlets that I've been, my writing has been featured in.
Yeah, love it. So now it's one thing you're working, you are doing what you want to call a mundane task, but yet you're working your mind, you're creative on this thing that you really love, you're getting a swag, you're getting $100 or whatever you were getting in it. Now you incorporate the travel into it, right? At the time you were still working, from what I understand, right before you began the travel, and then you started doing more and more and you hit this goal. It sounds like sooner than you expected. How did it then flip to, you want to know what? I want to do this full time. Like, I don't want to do it off the side, get some creative juices and swag. Like, I wanted to really to pay my bills. How did it go from that stage to the next? And when that happened, was it because actually I'm going to hold that question. I'm going to hold the last question that I have for you, but talk about, now I've decided I really like this. Like, I want to do this full time. How did you go from the 100 article traveling to now this is what you do, no longer practicing law?
Yeah. So when I got back from my last trip, my birthday's in January. So it marked the start and the end of the year. And when I got back from my birthday trip, I had run out of sick leave and days off, excuse me. Oof.
Bless you.
I want to spare you on my sneeze because I have had people say, God bless you, to like 300-pound men behind me before, so I don't want to scare you. Okay, but yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, well,
thank you. So I had no more sick leave. I had no more vacation days by the time I came back. So if I was going to stay practicing law, the fun was really over. Like, I was going to have to work another year to gain all those days back, and I wasn't going to be able to go anywhere. And I wasn't really sure that was what I wanted to do. I don't know why it's like dusty in here. Excuse me.
No, yeah.
I jinxed it now. I'm sorry. Sometimes Puerto Rico can get a little bit dusty. Island, tropic.
He's in Puerto Rico, y'all.
Yeah. And so I had a choice at that time. And I realized that throughout the whole year, I was actually happiest. Because at this point, we're coming to terms with that reckoning of, am I doing what I want to do? Am I going to go into this next decade of my life and continue down this path? Or am I going to do something radically different? Because if I'm going to do something radically different, the time to do it is now. The time to do it is before I get a dog, before I get a man, before I have children, before I have any more obligations than I already have, because I think so many people get into that lifestyle trap where now they have a mortgage, they have a car they're paying, they can't possibly leave things behind, right? Yes. I had a nearly paid off, 2010 Chevy Malibu that's still with me to this day. Scratched
you
up
gotta talk about it, girl, until it falls down. No.
Yes, it has really done what it needed to do for me. It's been with me for over 10 years. I paid like $8,000 for it. It has just been amazing, that car. And so, I think it for me, I had the ability to make the change, and I felt like if I didn't, I would regret it, especially, and there were so many other attorneys that I worked with that helped me see that choice. Like, everybody knew what I was doing. People were supportive of me, but also kind of weary as to like, what's Jen doing? Is she going to be quitting? What's happening?
Uh-huh.
But then I came back, and there were two moments with coworkers. One was a coworker of mine directly in my unit that she actually bought me a book about what writers make. I think I actually have it here on the shelf. And she wrote an inscription in it, and it said, you know, go ahead, be happy. And
Oh,
that was really
oh,
sweet.
I felt that just now. Oh my gosh.
That was really
Okay.
sweet.
Yes.
And then there was on the other end, an attorney who had, you know, called me into her office, and she was like, I hear you're thinking of leaving. She's like, she's like, Jen, I'm an attorney with 15 years experience, and I have twins, and everybody's on Medicaid. Like, run for your life. And
Wow. So
and so
that's where you're
I was
like,
like,
I better listen. I better listen to that wisdom, right?
exactly.
Yes.
It was just that impetus. And I really thought, you know, I had that job teaching English online. So for the first time, I was making 20 bucks an hour. And so maybe I couldn't live in Florida. I mean, 20 bucks an hour online. I always thought online work was like not a thing, because this was pre-pandemic. This was before anybody considered online work to be legitimate, which we now know it very much is. But this was groundbreaking at the time. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm making 20 bucks an hour teaching English online. I may not be able to live where I'm living now, but I could live in Asia. I could live abroad. I could live in other places, and definitely cover my rent just with some teaching expenses. So I tried that for about a year while I was building up my business, and I did travel a lot.
Let me pause you 1 second. So you had these two coworkers give you some inspirational words, then the aha button went off, and then you gave your 2 weeks. Is that what happened?
There was still a little bit more. So I was still on the fence, but then I think the final push, because I had used all my sick leave, and the thing about me is I'm a grown ass woman.
I love it. Now tell me where that's coming from. I gotta know why you said so. Somehow I feel like somebody said something. You're like, listen, I'm a girl. You know what you just said.
You know, I have a very prestigious degree. I have worked very hard. I always cover all of my aspects, so I don't need to be micromanaged, and very few things irk me more than people micromanaging me, which is why I do so well as an entrepreneur. And which is why, no matter how much anxiety comes with, like, who knows where the next money is going to come from, I'd still rather that, because I am 100% in control of like everything that I do. I never have to respond to or answer to anybody. But there was definitely a moment in February where I had one last trip planned to Portugal, and it was for the weekend. It was a long weekend, and I was going to take a sick day and just go. It was like a direct flight from Miami to Lisbon. So it's going to be a long weekend trip. And I was just taking like one day off. And I actually did have a doctor's appointment set up that day, because I like to base all of my things in truth. And so I actually did schedule a dentist appointment. And I was there that morning, and I called out sick, and I got a message that, you know, calling out sick was only for really being sick, and that, you know, I couldn't abuse the privilege and all of this. And that just really irked me, because again, if they're my days to spend how I see fit. I do not need to be micromanaged. I'm not an hourly person. I am a salaried professional. All that matters is that I get my job done. All that matters is that I handle my cases. So this, like, being on top of me to use time that I've already that's been allocated to me, that it's in my right to use, like, so I got so flustered after that I was living in Naples at the time. I drove back to Miami, which is where the flight was leaving from. It was a 2-hour drive. I left my passport. So I did not have enough time by the time I got to Miami to be able to take that flight. And since it was like the cheapest flight, they couldn't reschedule me. So I missed that trip to Lisbon because of that flustered phone call. And when I went back home, I decided I wasn't going to let that weekend go to waste. And so that's when I sat down and wrote my first book in a weekend.
You gotta go, girl. see that's a prime example of a situation that you turned lemon into lemonade, right? Okay, one, I got frustrated by somebody that's micromanaging me, somebody that's trying to tell me what to do with my time that I've earned, and then now you've lost your didn't you have your passport, you had to turn back around, and now you got a book out of it. Like, who would do that? Like, that's amazing. Most people would be like, oh no, I can't believe I'm mad now because of this person, and like, I missed my trip. Just forget it, give me some ice cream, I'm on the couch for the rest of the day. And you go and write a book. How about that?
you get that motivation where you're like, okay, you know what? I'm at that point where if I am going to take that leap, I want to see. And the book was my proof. Besides having, working for someone else and making $20 an hour, that's fine, but that's not my dream. So I needed proof that, like, I now have proof I can make money online. Great. But do I have proof that I can actually make money online as Jen on a jet plane?
Yes.
And because still at that point, we weren't doing that. I was still making money freelance writing for others. That was the only money I'd made at that point. So yeah, Pace Magazine can make money. Yeah, Elite Daily can make money, but can Jen make money? Like,
Yes.
and so
Off of
that was
your
what
writing.
exactly.
Yes.
And under my name, under my
Yes.
brand,
Yes.
under, and so my business. And so that was my first entrepreneurial venture. I launched that book. That trip was in February that it was missed. I launched it by April 1st.
Okay.
It became a bestseller in 8 categories
You go,
instantly.
girl. Yay. And tell us the name of your book.
The first book, it's actually have it right here. It's called The Affordable Flight Guide. It won a Reader's Favorite Award back in 2018. And it's about how to find cheap flights all over the world.
Okay. All right. So now you took the challenge. You now have the situation at work. You've dropped the book. And when did your site, Jen on a Jet Plane, begin to make money for Jen? Like what happened in the sequence of things where you're like, okay, not just for Pace, because maybe you continue with Pace and others, but Jen on a Jet Plane is going to make its own money for Jen?
That really didn't start until the SEO workshop. So this is now beginning of 2018. By April, the book is launched. By end of April, I've quit. So now May 2018, I start my full-time journey. By July 2018, August 2018, I am in an SEO workshop all day.
Okay.
So a few months later, I'm in an SEO workshop, really trying to learn, what am I doing wrong? Because I've had a blog for many years and it's just not, how can I actually make money off of this? And so I sat in that workshop and finally it made it click for me. Like, what is SEO? How do you write for Google? Like, so many things that now I understand, but I think I really just needed to sit down and have it be taught to me step by step. And that's so valuable sometimes, just in saving you so much time and telling you what you need to know. And so once I had that, I started implementing it regularly, but I'm a challenge kind of person. I like challenges because it gives me a set start and end time, and it makes me kind of like sprint during that time. So the next year in January of 2019, I did a 30 blog posts in 30 days challenge because it had been increasing my traffic, but I didn't have enough content to really pass the threshold of traffic that you needed to monetize at the time. For me, I was aiming for 25,000 views a month to qualify for Mediavine, which is the publisher network that I'm with now. That threshold has since been raised to 50,000 views a month.
I know. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And do you think that the platform that the blog is on matters from an SEO or in any perspective? Do you think a blog needs to be on a certain platform to be able to perform at the higher levels, or does it matter where it's housed?
I think it matters more the ease of running ads on your blog. And so WordPress is really great if you're going to be monetizing your website. If you know you want to run ads, that's the best place for that. Otherwise, some other places or Squarespace, it may be a little bit harder, but I don't think it affects your performance on Google. So those are two different things. Your performance on Google is affected by the value of your content and how well you answer someone's question. So if I go on Google and I want to know what are the top 10 beaches in Puerto Rico, and I click on a post and that post doesn't answer my question, so I go back and I click on the next post down, Google dings that top post because it said, oh, top post, you didn't answer this user's question. It didn't stay on your page very long and immediately didn't found it relevant. We're going to start ranking you a little bit lower on this answer to this search query because we only want to have the most helpful, the most useful stuff where people spend forever, where people share it, and where people stop searching once they get to your post because you've answered their question.
Oh, that's extremely helpful. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, so now, and I think the other thing, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, you talked about the sequence of events that happened, and then you found yourself in a day-long workshop on SEO. When you were working and say no longer had time available, could you sit in that workshop? Because I think that's the other thing that I'm hearing from you is that it gave you time, although you had the creative moments within your day to be able to do things, but now you have full time to do a blog a day, to sit in a workshop, to just focus on SEO without trying to do it in the middle or afterwards. So am I accurate in saying that? Is that what it also allowed your time during the day to be able to do things associated with your ultimate goal of monetizing your blog and other things?
Yeah, it absolutely helped. It would have been difficult to do as much as I did, to learn as much as I did, to take myself on the trip and to spend, a full day in a workshop and do all these conference things if I was still working. Not impossible, but it would have been slower growth. And it was slow growth even when I was dedicating myself to this full time. So it still feels like it's been so long for me to actually figure things out, because I've been trying to grow so many different concurrent income streams. So versus, instead of being like, I have friends that we met at the same time at the same conference, that first travel conference, and they were like, we want to be YouTubers. So the only thing they focus on their entire life is about YouTube, 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 YouTube. And I'm like, I would like to write books. I'd like to start a blog. I guess I have to be on Instagram. Maybe I can also do like public speaking. And so so it was growing all these different things. Like I gave my first TEDx talk in the fall of 2018, again, a few months after I quit. So I wasn't necessarily dedicating myself just to building the blog. I was also trying to pitch speaking engagements. I was also trying to grow my social media. I was also trying to learn about attending conferences and, networking with brands to get brand partnerships. So I have been learning all of that as I go. And because of that, it has been definitely much smaller growth than if I would have put all of my energy and attention into any one thing. But I'm happy with where I am at this point, because I feel like I'm well diversified in many different income streams, and like any one can really sustain me. So if any other one leaves, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And that's important for my sanity.
And now, because your journey didn't, I mean, you were in a profession that one would say is, a really good profession. You go to school for a long time, but the result in that is that you make a lot of money being a lawyer or others. So one would think, right? And I'm not saying it's not, but let's just stay with that. So now you didn't technically prepare to leave financially. So how did that work for you? Or were you just a very frugal person all along? So you already, you had money diversified and growing in different places? Or did you find yourself in somewhat of a pickle? You knew you wanted to do it. You knew what you needed to do to be able to sustain, like you mentioned, potentially a move or something like that. Did you have a financial when that happened or not?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't stay in Florida, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to afford that rent. So I had to I sold all of my belongings, and not for very much, because I had to leave too. And so I was like, literally like $5 bookshelf, anybody, $5, $1, 50 cents. So like it's shameful how little I sold my things for. And so I didn't have savings. And I know this is something that surprises a lot of people, because you think, oh, I need to. And again, I think that's where people necessarily have lives that are a little bit less fluid, where you have things that you have to take care of no matter what. Like, either way you have to make that car payment, either way you have to make that mortgage payment, whether you're employed or not. And I think for me, I was very lucky where the only thing I had was like a $200 a month car payment, and then wherever I decide to live, which can be, pretty frugal if you're going to different countries that are about that. And so ultimately I ended up coming here to Puerto Rico to settle in here, because the nomad life was a lot and I wanted a home base. But I do think that it helped to not have recurring monthly expenses.
Yes.
Not have any big financial commitments tying me down. Student loans, I also wasn't that worried about, because they base student loans off your income. So if my income is off the teaching income, then okay, I'm on pay as you earn. So if that's like an extra, like what, $10, like $100 a month kind of thing, like, okay, so now we're up to like $300 a month of my monthly obligations. If I can get rent somewhere for like $700 or less. So I felt like I was okay in my mind putting the numbers together, being like, I know I can scrape by. And if I can scrape by while building, then I know that there's potential to make so much more. And that's what I now see on this other side of it, how much more I could make. Like, it's insane. And I've had to work on my scarcity mindset, my money mindset, in terms of not feeling guilty for charging my worth, because now I can make more for one, deliverable, one product that I'm creating, one short form video. And I did it in a month as an attorney, and I had a big hang up. And so for a long time, I found myself not getting paid where other people were getting paid on the same trips as me, because I didn't know how to charge my work. I didn't know how to demand it. And I felt guilty about it, even though I'm good at what I do and I should be getting paid just as much as anybody else. And so I've learned that now, and I've come to that point now where I don't really travel anywhere for free. I mean, maybe Antarctica if it's a really cool trip, but otherwise, I should be getting paid to go out, because at the end of the day, this is work for me. Yeah. I don't have the option to not show up. I am on all day, one thing to another, and not a lot of people can maintain that kind of pace. Yeah. And I can, right? Like, I thrive off that energy. I'm like, yeah, one thing to another. Let's go. Let's see all the things. Most people are like, this is exhausting. I just want to take a nap. So it's constantly working, constantly taking notes, constantly thinking of story ideas, content, taking video, taking footage, curating it, posting while you're out, coming back, thinking about ways that you can like tell this story in different ways, pitching, creating that content, sharing that content, like always constantly working.
So is the monetization in so I like you, I thrive on let's go. I want to see wherever I am. I want to be immersed in wherever I am. But so that's why this is very intriguing to me. So is the monetization for being I think you said travel writer and content creator, is it I went to these places and I'm coming back to write about it, and you get and you're monetized by way of somebody reading what you wrote about it? Or is it Patrina Dixon owns Marriott or owns, whatever airline, and we want to pay you to go to X place so that you can come back and write about it? Like, or is it both? Like, what's the monetization in being what you do as a travel writer?
So there's lots of different income streams here. I've covered a few of them, but we'll just do a brief overview. So we had book royalties and writing books. I have 5 books I've self-published, and I have a traditional book deal for my memoir that's coming out next summer. Okay. So that's recurring monthly royalties from Amazon, and then a book advance from my publisher. Yeah. Okay. Then I have the blog. The blog is monetized through affiliate links and ad revenue. So that's where they host ads on your site. I do that with Mediavine. I get paid monthly for both affiliate links through a bunch of different programs I promote, and traffic to my site that are reading my articles about whatever trip that I took, that are hopefully coming up on page 1 of Google. Okay. Then I have travel writing, freelance travel writing for different outlets like Time Magazine, like Photos Travel, things like that. Those are stories that I'll come back sometimes from a press trip and I'll pitch them if I want to have a big platform to really tell stories that I don't think would perform as well SEO wise on my channel. For instance, 10 spots to go bird watching in Outer Banks. That's a on a jet plane post. That's going to do well on Google. That's what people are looking for. Where should I go bird watching? My post that I did for the Outer Banks on what it was like to be a city dweller going bird watching for the first time and what that experience was like, that's not an SEO friendly post. That's something that I did for their blog to make content for their website to promote the destination. Okay. So usually when it's something that's not SEO friendly, I will pitch that because it's a story I want to tell. And I want to get eyes on it. So there you get paid by the publication that is publishing your story. Okay. So if Photos Travel is publishing one of my stories, they send me a paycheck. Okay. And then I also have brand partnerships. And so that's done in coordination with Marriott or with destination, Outer Banks, the tourism board themselves. And there we talk beforehand about what they're trying to do to market their destination, because they all have marketing budgets and marketing priorities. We talk about how I can help, ways that I've helped in the past. I have millions of impressions on the content that I've created. I have, really good case studies that can show how I actually bring and generate business. I had one video for Airbnb that generated 12,000 link clicks to their link that they wanted to generate traffic to. So I can show that ROI, and then I figure out what do they want from me. Do you want videos that they can use for their own commercial advertising? Do you want photos that you can use for your brochure or your website? Do you want content that I'll write for your blog? Do you, what is it that they want from me? And then I put together a package, and then they'll pay me to create content and they'll pay for my travels. Okay. So there are 4 kind of quick different ways.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And thank you for breaking it down like that. I really appreciated that. And then you heard her say ROI, that's return on investment, in case people didn't know that. So, Jen, this has been absolutely amazing. So, do you have anything going on that you want to share with people that, if you have something going on between now and the end of May that you may want to share with folks so they can go check that out?
Sure. So I definitely understand that a lot of people don't really know what it is that I do, right? Because for just being this kind of digital content creator was not a job that existed when we were all learning about jobs and growing up. So I have started this year to do different training programs, virtual training programs. I'm just wrapping up tomorrow. We'll have the last session on my travel writer training program. So in that 4-week program, I've been teaching people exactly how to get these bylines, how to get into these press trips, how to be treated like media, how to get into media organizations and be a freelance travel writer. So that was one of the trainings. Around May or so, I should be having one on TikTok because I have over 250,000 followers on there, and it has been a great source of leads and traffic for me. So I will share how I've been able to go viral and use TikTok as a way to get deals with brands, to generate traffic to my website. When I have a viral video, I can get more than 10,000 hits to my website in a day. And so that's something that I'll be working on, but I'll be doing trainings throughout the year. Other things include how to land a TEDx talk. I've given 3 TEDx talks, so I'm really good at landing TEDx talks. And so I think a lot of people would love to give a speech like that. And so that's one of the things I'm sharing: how to self-publish a book, how to start a blog. So I'm sharing this knowledge because I do think that I have in-depth information that people want to know and don't have ease of finding in other places in a way that's really laid out clearly. And by doing these live sessions, kind of group training with me, we can make sure everybody's questions are answered and that we can really get everybody taking action.
I love it. I love it. And so they can go to Jen on a Jet Plane to find more information out about the training, right? So again,
Yes.
that's Jen on a Jet Plane, Jen on a Jet Plane. And is that .com, .info? What is it?
Yep, .com.
.com. And you all, that link will be down below. You want to make sure you go check Jen out, and some of the best pictures, some of the best places she's traveled. Some of us may need to live going to those places through her, or you can consider doing what she does, which is why I wanted to have her come on and talk a little bit more about what she does and how she does it. And if you're interested in learning more about it, you want to check out the videos that she just mentioned, or the programs that she has to be able to teach people how to do what she does. I love that you are monetizing not just one component of what you do and the wealth of knowledge that you have. So I love that. I'm a huge fan of that. So I love that you're doing that. So if people are interested, you talked about the videos you have. What do you have to say to somebody that is right there on the ledge and they want to experience the world like you have? They want to be able to enjoy what they're doing every day, all day, if they're not doing that today. What do you have to say to that person that's listening?
Yeah, I don't think everybody's necessarily meant to do this, what I'm doing, right? Because it is a lot of movement. I have a 4 a.m. flight on Friday, and then I have a 14-hour flight to Japan on Monday. And so I'm constantly on the go, and it's not for everybody. So if you know that you want to transition, I would first ask you, what is it that makes you feel really good? Because when I was coming back from my trips, I recognized that I came back in such a light mood. I was so elated. I came back almost floating into the office, really just happy. On the drive back from Miami, I'd be singing, and when I was at work, I would feel really down. And so it doesn't have to be travel for you. Travel just happened to be it for me, but maybe there's something that you really love. Maybe you really love earrings and you want to make earrings for a living because they make you happy to see all the different designs and colors and to have people wearing bold statement pieces. Maybe you really love cooking. You have a passion for vegan food. Food is one of the most searched topics. Go figure. Everybody has to eat, right? And so if you have a blog or any kind of content on food, especially a niche aspect of it, that's bound to get traffic because everybody needs to eat. And so really figure out what it is. If it's movies, you like Netflix, you can be making a living. You could be the next TMZ, but with a soul, right? With morals. But he's essentially an entertainment blogger. He has a website putting out news about entertainment people, and you could do the same. And so really figure out, what is it that you like? What is it that you could do for a long time? Because it may not be travel, and it may be travel, but maybe it's something else, something random. Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's, designing, maybe it's whatever it is. And then there are ways that you can monetize that core interest online and find out different income streams that you can use to really take that passion and make it into a career.
Jen, well said. Well said. Thank you so much. I so appreciate having you on. Again, I love watching your journey. Thank you for always sharing it with us. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming on the show. Those of you that are watching or listening, please make sure you go check out Jen on a jet plane. And I appreciate you. This is Patrina Dixon, your money coach. Remember, it's my money across all social platforms. And if you are watching and you haven't subscribed, drop down below and hit that red button. If you are listening on any audio platform, make sure you continue to follow us and then leave us a message. Let us know what you think about what you heard here today. So thanks again, Jen. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Patrina.
You're welcome.